Welcome to the Ebb and Glow podcast. I'm your host, Jenelle Tremblett, and I'm a firm believer that even when life doesn't go as planned, it is taking you exactly where you're meant to be. On this podcast, I'm here to help you finally release control of what you think you want and begin to just trust in the ebbs and flows of life. Each week, I will show you how to build that positive mindset, radiate with self-confidence, and cultivate an unshakable resilience. Let me prove to you that even when life ebbs, you will glow. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Ebb and Glow podcast. Today's episode is one that you wouldn't expect. It's all about how self-care did not work for my guest. And I know that is a very general statement, but I feel like in the media and on TikTok and social media in general, we always hear self-care, self-care, self-care. Just do a bit of self-care and the rest of your life will sort itself out. Well, my guest, Genevieve, saw it a completely different way. Her experience was very different. And for her, she did so much self-care that, in her words, it almost broke her. So yeah, that just gives you a taste of what today's episode is all about. So in today's episode, we talk about how my guest Genevieve left her safe, stable job as a kinesiologist and just took a leave of absence. She just couldn't do it anymore. And after taking some time off, she came back with a bounce in her step. However, it went downhill from there. Genevieve felt unhappy, but turned to self-care to find happiness. She tried exercising, journaling, meditating, sleeping more. This went on for about 1.5 years until, like I said, in her words, self-care almost broke her. Today, Genevieve is coming to us from Cochrane, Alberta. Love talking to a Canadian guest. And her mission is to help people understand what being well means, what it looks like, and what it feels like, and not the usual way that you're used to seeing. So in this episode, we talk about being self-employed, trusting your intuition, meditating, health coaching, having flexibility, and how to not play small anymore. So I hope you loved today's episode. I know I did with Genevieve. And if you do, please make sure to share it with a friend who may also get value, because you never know who's going to listen or who's going to take a lot of value from this and how it could really change their life. So please make sure to share it. And if you're loving today's episode, reach out and tell me. I love hearing from all of you. Okay, without further ado, let's get to the episode. Genevieve, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jenelle.
Are you excited to be here?
I'm excited and very nervous.
Everyone's always nervous. And I remember being on the other side a few times for my first time doing that. I was like, oh my goodness. I felt like, I almost felt like it was a job interview, and it's not at all.
Yeah. And it's funny you said not enough. And I'm like, oh, that's how I feel like right now.
It's funny that you say that, because we can do so much self-work on ourselves and we think we're in a place that we're healed. We've got to figure it out. And something can not trigger us, but it's almost like brings up that insecurity and self-worth issue. Like how quickly, like I said, and you're like, oh, right, true. Maybe I am not enough. And it's like, no, you are.
Yeah. It's like, oh, right. That's what's happening in me right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I've went through many, many, many times in my life, and I'm still kind of battling those things of feeling like the not enoughness. But I mean, how did that show up for you?
Well, just feel like that questioning, like, well, why am I on a podcast anyway? Like, my story doesn't matter. Like, that's not enough to be on a podcast. But when you said that, is like, there's a reason why I'm here. And it's just that awareness. It just came up, and it's like, no, I'm fine. I'm here. Let's do it.
Agreed. And I find the people that you connect the most deeply with are the ones that you see yourself in them. You know, it's more relatable. So the fact that you're being honest and vulnerable, being like, hey, I'm here, I'm in the hot seat, I found my way to the hot seat, and I still don't feel like I deserve to be here. I mean, a lot of people have felt that way, whether it's a job interview, whether it's finally getting the date of someone you've had a crush on for a while. And it's like, the proof is there, like you're there, but yet we still question it. There's a lot of imposter syndrome. And I think it happens a lot more with women as well, I would say.
Yeah, I believe so. And it just here's to show that there's a lot happening in our head, and it's whether you want to believe it or not. Take it as it is, or take it with a grain of salt. So I'm choosing to take it with a grain of salt right now.
Yes, please do. Please do. Because like I said, the proof is it's factual. It's in your face. It's here. It's funny that, yeah, we can continue on that narrative of the not enough, because I mean, you were a kinesiologist. That's a pretty like prominent job. Like that's not just like any little job. So you've had to do a lot of work and proving yourself and excelling and achieving a lot of things to get into that position.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's a career, right? Like I set out to go to university and do tons of internship and work my way through a career that's not really well defined what you're going to do with it after when you're done university. And I figured it out, and then I had a pretty good career in that field. I think when the not enough came up the strongest is when I didn't feel happy in what I thought I was supposed to be happy. I think that's where the not enough really showed up the most well, there's nothing else out there for me. This is it. Like, this is what I'm supposed to do. And I'm not happy, but there's nothing else for me. And that's where the not feeling enough to take the steps to be happy, I think, yeah, that was really present at that moment.
I come from a business background. So for me to transition into another career or to just make any kind of pivot in my life, I kind of already have that foundational soft skill set that there seems like there's a lot more opportunities open to me. But if you have a medical background and you're a kinesiologist, that's a very specific career. You can't just very easily pick up and go be a completely different career. Even within the medical field, it might be a little tough because you have to do completely different training and examinations and changing, even though deep down you know you need a change. It's not as easy as just like applying for a different company or applying for a different role.
Right. Yeah.
But I guess my question to you is, what first sparked you and made you want to get into kinesiology? And how long were you in that career? And then also, when were you starting to get those inner thoughts of thinking like, I don't know, is this all it is kind of thing?
Yeah. So what got me in the field in the first place, to be honest, when you're like finishing and you need to decide, and I was just browsing through programs like what's offered in university, and I remember I've always been active. I come from a very active family. I looked into phys ed, obviously, so and I don't know, it didn't spark anything in me, and then I just really stumbled upon kinesiology and looked at like what was the courses like, and I remember just feeling like I just want to take those courses. Like, wow, learning more about the body and development and how we learn to move and all these things. I was just like, yeah, I don't know what I'm going to do with this, but I just want to learn more in that field. And that's how I got in without a clear definition of what it was going to look like at the end. I don't know now, but back in my days when I was in kinesiology, like it was a field that was very vague still. And what are you going to do with it after was quite open. I always had that more active lifestyle, like the desire to work in active lifestyle. So not high performance, really more inspired by like just the being active and what it brings into your life. And I worked in that field for 10 years. I landed a job here in Alberta in chronic disease management. So using exercise to manage symptoms that comes with a chronic disease. So super powerful intervention there, and amazing that we are in the healthcare system so people can access our services for free, right? So did that for 10 years and learned, oh my gosh, did I ever learn? It's amazing when you finish university and you start working and you're like, oh, now I know what I need to learn.
It's always the case. You don't learn anything in university.
Right?
Learn it while you're there.
Just enough to get you there. But after that, you learn so much, learning from like the clients I was working with, but also the other clinicians that I was working with. So I work with physiotherapists, respiratory therapists, social workers. So there was so much learning there. And the fact that a kinesiologist could have a full-time job in healthcare, so safety, benefits, union, like that was like a big deal, because in the world of kinesiology, there's not that many of that kind. A lot of it is, there's quite a bit in private sector. A lot of kinesiologists move to other careers after as well. So after 10 years, I think that's where I got stuck, is there was that feeling that there was more I could do. There was something different I needed to do. But the feeling that, yeah, but there's nothing better than this because it's safe, because it's steady. I can be here for as long as I want. I can provide for my family. So I think that's where I started feeling stuck, is that you feel like you need something different, but you don't see that it's possible. And you don't think that you should want something different.
That's always the key word.
Yeah.
Always. That's the one that always keeps us stuck. I should do this. I should do that. You know, it's fascinating.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to me when you started telling me of why you got into kines, there was a bit of a sparkle in your eye. You were like, I looked at the courses and I said, like, those are my interests. I'm excited. Yeah. So you were following your instinct. You were following your interest, because when you're 18, you don't have any responsibilities. You're like, what am I interested in? What do I like? What do I want to learn? Like, if I'm paying to learn this, let's do something that I'm going to enjoy.
Yeah.
But then you fast forward and it's 10 years later and all of a sudden you're like, I'm stuck. And I know deep down that I should be doing something that makes me a little bit more happy, but I also should stick to this because of the safety, stability. And I want to know, like, when you think back, when do you lose the lackluster? Like, who's conditioning us with this narrative?
I think that's where we need to look at our beliefs. What do we believe is true? And what I believe was true when I started my career, that's what stuck with me 10 years later. But I think those beliefs were not true anymore. But there was just that hanging on to. I believe that having a full-time job in the healthcare was the best that I could do. I believe that I had to stay in that job to provide for my family. And it's what's funny is that talking to other people about my struggles, people were answering with their own belief, right? So what I was hearing from a lot of people was like, well, Jen, there's nothing better than this job out there for you in Alberta anyway. It's like, oh yeah, you're right. So then it's like, you have your own belief, but then other people around you will confirm those beliefs. So then it just makes you feel even more wrong to just feel that struggle. So I think once you accept that, maybe looking at those beliefs and like putting them kind of outside of you and looking at them and seeing like, do I still believe that? Is that still serving me? And also, is this my belief, or is that a belief that's been imposed on me by society, by where I grew up, who I grew up with, adults around me, what did they model? Like that's, so yeah. So it was just like a big cleanup of my belief. And I think I'm still kind of working through that 3 years later, having my own business and stuff. Like there's so much that I need to clean up there and redefine. So yeah, I think a lot of what's holding us back is that we think this is true and we think it needs to keep being true.
What I'm hearing from you is birds of a feather flock together, and your belief systems can be created with the people around you. And it just goes to show that where the power lies is, who are you surrounding yourself with? If everyone you surround yourself with thinks the absolute best is having a stable job in Alberta and you've made it, then that's the ceiling that you're putting on yourself. It doesn't matter how big your internal dreams are. If you are surrounding yourself with those people that believe that, those become your beliefs as well, as you're saying.
Yeah. It's like confirming, like, oh yeah, if they believe that, then I believe that too. Like I'm right to believe that.
And you don't want to question the narrative. You don't want to be the one person that thinks a little bit radically.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of bravery to be that person.
It does. And it's interesting because when I resigned my permanent position, big deal, right?
They're like, well, what about your mortgage? What about your kids' expensive schooling and extracurricular? And you're like, what about my happiness?
Exactly. Right. And I feel like, looking back, I feel like at that point I was resigning more out of like, I just can't do it anymore. Yet to some people that I talk to now are like, you showed so much strength in doing so. And I was like, where were you when I needed to hear that? but yeah, it's just, I was showing strength when inside what I was feeling was, I don't know if it was defeated, but it was just a sense of like, it was like a desperate choice. I know I cannot do this anymore, yet I don't know what else I can do, but I'm stopping here.
It's interesting. You mentioned before that when you were starting to feel these things, like you felt that, yeah, this isn't it. I'm unhappy. So you had the enough self-awareness to think, okay, but I need to do something about it. I'm not just going to sit and wallow in this. I'm going to sort this out. And you basically got burnt out from doing traditional self-care. You literally said self-care almost broke me.
Yeah.
I want you to dive into that because that's completely against the narrative we're hearing these days. Everyone says anything wrong with your life, just do some self-care. I mean, I say that, but you're saying self-care literally almost broke you.
Yeah, because the first reflex that I had when I started feeling that maybe I was unhappy was to think, well, I need to manage myself and cope better. So turning that onto myself. And I was a kinesiologist. I was telling people helping people to figure out how to be healthy, right? So I know what to do. So I'd set out, like I was huge into yoga. So I was just even more into that and started like all the things like meditating, journaling. I needed to eat better, making sure I get some fresh air, sleeping, like all the things. Each time I have 2 kids. So I was making sure I had enough like time for myself. So every time I'd go back to work and felt like had a bad day or felt irritated or something, it was always like, oh, well, I didn't eat that well, or I didn't sleep enough. So I took it upon myself to make it better. But then when it didn't get better, I was the problem. I was not doing enough, right? So it was kind of caught in that cycle that it was about me. It was just about me. And when I say it almost broke me, is that it allowed me to cope. I was well enough to function at work. I was well enough to continue keeping care of my kids and being there for my family. But it distracted me from what was really going on and actually looking into what I needed to look. So I think if I had kept on going, it would have probably just led into me not being able to function at all. But it probably maintained me in that situation a lot longer than somebody who doesn't exercise, who doesn't sleep well, who doesn't eat well, that kind of stuff. So I think it's the fine balance in taking care of yourself, yes, but are you doing that so you cope in a bad situation and keep yourself there? Or are you taking care of yourself to elevate and make sure you keep thriving?
Do you think the type of self-care that you were doing was Band-Aid solutions?
It was Band-Aid solution. And I don't think it was coming from within.
Yeah.
It was coming again, I should sleep more. I should exercise more because it's supposed to make me feel better. Right. Once I made decisions and I was able to clarify what needed to change, I was able to check within as like, what do I need? And at that point, what came up for me was, well, I need to be inspired and I need to feel connected. And yes, when I started my career, I felt super inspired and super connected. But 10 years later, doing the same job, I was not feeling inspired anymore. And I was not feeling connected to myself. I had to commute out of my community. So I didn't feel connected to my community. I didn't feel connected to my team anymore. So once I checked in, I didn't need to exercise more. I needed to be inspired and feel connected. And then I was able to say, okay, well, what do I do to feel connected and inspired? And then I was able to set out actions that are not your typical self-care. But in the end, when I look back, it was like, well, that was my way to take care of myself. Again, the belief, right? Belief that this is how you take care of yourself. And then to question that and be, well, maybe there's a different way to take care of myself.
Mm-hmm. What did you do that allowed you to start listening in a little bit more internally?
Time. I just took time. Like, so I was fortunate that I had support from my husband. I was able to take a year off.
Wow.
Yeah. That being said, when you take childcare off the list, is a little easier. So I was able to take time off. And to be honest, I think if I hadn't made that choice, I would have had to stop working and eventually my health.
Probably go on some kind of like stress leave or something.
Exactly. Right. So I think I did it because I wanted to keep control. So by me saying I'm taking that leave, and I had support from my job as well to say like, okay, we'll give you a leave. So just having that time, I'd say the first couple months, it was, I'd get up and like, do. Like, oh, finally I have time. I'll clean my house. I'll fix this. I'll do this. Right.
And you're still not sitting in any stillness.
Totally. Right.
You're going through a damn to-do list.
Yeah. It was
cleaning the garage.
It was like just shifted. Right. And it's almost like my nervous system needed that. Like it could not bear not doing anything. But finally I was able to kind of get off that like high vibrancy that you always need to do. And I started like my days by just, what do you need right now? I need to eat breakfast. Like my day was just, I had like a window with that I was by myself during the day. And that window, I started just focusing on what do I need right now? And a lot of it at first was lying on my couch, doing nothing, Netflix binge, reading books, doing not much and learning to be okay with that. So not going down the guilt that I'm not doing enough and that kind of stuff. So just kind of allowing myself. And I was supported like by people that were like, yeah, but that's why you're on a leave of absence, is so you can have time to do nothing, right? I had helped to like change what was going on in my head. And by having that time and just focusing on what do you need right now, you start to just sit still and listen what's coming up. And trust me, what was coming up was not exercise or meditation or journaling. Like it was just nothing at first, right? And slowly I could reintroduce some practice of going back to yoga. And because there was space for nothing, that the things that I loved just kind of resurfaced. In that space, in that a little bit slower in stillness, that's where I was able to think, okay, what do I want to do with my career? Am I going to go back? Am I still a kinesiologist? Does that still speak to me? Yeah. So slowly things were able to fall into place and clarity, I guess, came back. But yeah, that clarity did not come in doing, in movement, and in action. It came from stillness, a little bit more stillness, and then letting things come up instead of searching madly for an answer.
This story is one I've heard many times. And I want to ask you, why do we do this? Why do we, when we take time off, and it could be like a leave of absence where it's like our mental health actually needs this leave, why is the first instinct to do? We are like, why is our society obsessed with being productive? Because you said it yourself, I found it hard to be okay with not doing anything. Why are we so scared to just chill? Truly.
I think there can be many answers to that. I think we're wired to accomplishment. In the to-do list, there's a sense of accomplishment. So that's another topic because that's a never-ending thing. You can never feel you're done with it. There's like that constant seeking for accomplishment. I've done something, therefore I am. I think there's for some people fear that if I stop and listen, I might not like the answer. I might not like what I hear. And if you're not ready, if you don't have the right support, you might actually be scared by the answer. If it tells you quit your job, forget about it all, it's scary. So yeah, I think it's both. We're wired to be in action, but also we're scared. There's like a fear around stopping, slowing down, listening in, we recognize ourselves by how much we've done in a day, in a week.
Some of the people that I know that accomplish the most are the people that I don't want to say are the most unhappy, but I feel they're the most disconnected to who they are.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They don't know any of their emotions from another emotion. It's sad.
It's sad because at the end of the day, how fulfilled do you feel by checking things off your to-do list, right? I'm now self-employed, so I'm on contract, and it's amazing how if I look at my week, I accomplish a lot because I have to if I want to work, right? But if I look at the amount of hours, it does not have to be 40, 50, 60 for me to get that feeling that I've done something, because the pace is so different. Well, right now I'm feeling like I can work. I'm in the right mindset to work. Today is just weird. It's not happening the way I want. So I'll do something different. Maybe another part of my job, or maybe I'll leave my job for later. I'll focus on the house or whatever, or read a book or whatever, and I'll come back to it later. So at the end of the week, I've done what I needed to do, but there's not that sense that it has to be nonstop and it has to be more hours and more time. And I feel like we can be a lot more efficient and meaningful if we just take it down a notch and check in.
Amen to that. I mean, I'm also self-employed. I work in real estate, and I mean, you got to be hustling all the time, but I too am starting to kind of train myself into, if I feel like I'm forcing it a little bit too much in these couple hours, let's just switch gears. Let's do something else. Let's go for a walk. Let's call a friend. Let's clean my bathtub. If I'm making calls to new leads and it's just like voicemail after voicemail after voicemail and not getting on the phone with anyone, let's change task. It's not meant to be right now.
Yeah, exactly.
But the old me would have been like, nope, just put in another 2 hours. You haven't had a good conversation with anyone yet. So spend 3 more hours until you have that conversation. No, I can't. Because it's like, the next day, like not everything is going to happen in the same hour every single day. Like life is not that structured, and I don't want it to be.
Right.
So I'm watching myself and I'm getting curious with myself, being like letting go of that control a little bit more and letting things become a little bit more flowy. It's tough. It's tough. I'll be honest.
Super tough. I had a chat with one of my friends she's working from home, 2 young kids, and we were talking about the fact that sitting at our desk seems where we need to be to work. And her job is quite there's a lot of thinking, there's a lot of numbers and stuff. And I was like, but if you stand up and walk around your house or go outside or do 15 squats, whatever, you're not sitting at your desk, but I bet your brain is still somehow trying to figure things out, that when you go back to your desk, you're probably going to get things done a lot more easier and like a flow, right? So it's again, that belief that to work, it has to look a certain way, in a certain order, in a certain schedule, in a certain area, and questioning that belief. Like you said, being curious. Well, is this the best I can do right now? Can I do it differently? Can it work differently? And most of the time, the answer is yes.
I love what you've been saying, though, because I am normally so type A and always have been. And there's still a little bit of type A in me, but I'm definitely noticing myself becoming a little bit more type B. So now I will have a general to-do list for the day, for the week, for the month of whatever goals and tasks I need to get done. But I like making a list and I don't want to make it too structured or too these are the 3 things I have to get done. I kind of have a lot of things on the list, because if I hit a wall, say at 1 o'clock in the day, and I'm like, yeah, those are 3 things that I should be getting done,
but I'm not feeling any of those. I'll look at the list and be like, ooh, that was one that I plan to do at 8 o'clock tonight. But that's one that I'm kind of feeling right now.
Yeah.
It's all going to get done at the end of the day, literally.
Exactly. And what does that do to your energy? When
I feel it's
flip
boosted. You switch things around. You realize that, I mean, you control your schedule. Like at the end of the day, it's all going to get done. It doesn't have to be as structured as you're intending it to be.
Right. Yeah. It just goes to show that just that curiosity and that checking in with yourself and be like, is this the best right now for me? And the 3 things that are on your list that you should be doing, well, where is the should coming from? Really, usually it comes from yourself. So negotiate with yourself, like, can that should move?
Yeah.
And usually, and I think that's for people that are in a job that like at 8 to 4, they have to be at work. Well, can you find a little bit of that flexibility within something that seems very rigid and very controlled? Where are your areas of freedom? What opportunities do you have to check in? Because I don't want people to think that like you have to go 180 and it's not possible in another area. I think it's just to be creative and to be, oh, if I check in with myself right now in that control environment, is there anything I can do that will bring me what I need? Yet I can keep doing the job that I'm supposed to do, right? Like if you're standing at a till, you don't have that much freedom. But if you check in with yourself and you're really cold, well, having an extra sweater will change the whole thing, the whole experience, right? So it's a small thing that can bring and shift a lot of your energy and your flow in your day.
And once your energy and flow changes, you will be amazed about how everyone else's changes. And all of a sudden, every person that was annoying you doesn't annoy you anymore.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. Yeah. That ripple effect, right? Like from taking care of yourself, checking in with yourself can influence other people and also can give other people the inspiration or the right. Well, if she's taking care of herself that way, maybe I can try it too. Maybe there's space for me to try it too.
During your year off, at what point and how did you find the path to what you're doing now?
It's super funny. So I think it was before I actually took my leave. I had taken an 8 weeks meditation program online and I was doing it early in the morning before going to work. And I don't know, that morning I finished my meditation kind of in the background, always like, oh, what am I going to do work wise, career wise? And I went online and I just typed in coaching, health coaching. I think I typed, and there might've been something the week before I heard something, I can't remember, but that morning I typed health coaching and that website came up, that program came up that was at Montreal University. So that was, I think, February. So that now we're talking like in the fall. So months later, it popped up again. I was like, oh yeah, that health coaching. And so I went on the website and when I put it against what do I need right now? What do I want? It just kind of checked all the boxes. I was just, again, like that, going back to when I was wanting to get in kinesiology, it was just looking at the courses and it was like, that's just what I don't know what I'm going to do with this, but I want to be in that program. I want to learn about these things. And I had done a little, like an intro to coaching before and really connected with it, but in a group of people that didn't really connected with it. Yeah, I guess there was already a curiosity, and then having more time checking in, like I was able to sit down and look at it again. And yeah, I just went to my husband and I was like, I think I want to try this. And he was like, okay.
Thank God for a supportive spouse. My goodness.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because if you're put yourself out there, right? By saying like, oh, what do you think of this? So having that yes really strengthened me going forward with it. And I started my program and I remember that first weekend being there and just being in a group of people that you just feel the energy. Everybody was so excited. Everybody was into it, curious, wanted to know more. And I just felt so at home, so at home. And I was like, this is going to take me somewhere. I don't know where, but it just feels right.
Yeah, I mean, you're trusting your intuition. You're following the path of where your curiosity and where your interest lives. And I wish more people would do that. I think they would be shocked at the path that leads them down.
Yeah, 100%. And what I realize about myself is I have an easy time following my intuition when it's a good thing. But when my intuition is telling me, well, maybe that's not the job you're supposed to do, maybe that was hard to listen to that.
Why?
Because it's scary, because it's change, because it's unknown, because it tells you this, but it doesn't tell you what the answer is. It doesn't tell you then what, right? So I think it's easy to follow when there's a clear path that goes with it. But when the path is just telling you, you can continue on that path, but you'll have to figure out which other one. I think that's where it's hard. So that's where you need that support. You need self-awareness. You need you need to be okay with the unknown. You need to be okay to reassess a lot of things. Yeah, change is hard.
Did you have a lot of fear going from stability in traditional career to self-employed?
Still working through this.
It's scary.
Yeah, because I hired a coach myself, and he said, well, now you're creating your safety, your stability, and your financial security. And I was like, oh, that's so true. I'm the one now that has to create it. Scary, but how powerful at the same time, right? And I have now 3 years to tell myself, okay, we're fine. We have a house, we eat, we do things, we have a good life. So now that belief that I had that financial stability was coming from outside, now I have to believe that it's coming from me, that I can create it.
When you're changing those belief patterns, I know for me, one thing that helps a lot is finding expanders. So finding someone that's already doing what I want to do or have done it already and it's already moved on again. Did you find you had to do the same?
Yes. And the other piece that I had to do for myself is to find some recurrent contract. So it's still me went outside and find those, but it's something that I know that I have money coming in every month. So it just goes to show there's so many different ways to create, and it's to go outside and check what are other people doing and what's working for them. And then how can you create that for yourself?
So basically you figured out a way to get a set amount of income coming in so that worst case scenario, if it's a bad month from a self-employment standpoint, you were going to be fine.
Exactly.
And it takes away that stress of finding money and that desperate energy.
Exactly. Yeah.
Agreed.
And it's like a in between, right? It's not a union job that is steady. It's a contract, so it can end tomorrow, but it's just that little bit more stable than a month to month that you don't know how many clients you're going to have.
It's smart. And one thing for me, I'm trying to build up some passive income opportunities because my career is 100% commission based. So there's never going to be really any guarantee, but I love the fun part of that because it's abundant, right? Like there's no ceiling, but some days it is scary where you're like, yeah, I don't who knows what this month is going to entail. And there's a lot of just like your trust muscle and your abundant personality that is really going to drive that. But yeah, still want to get a passive income opportunity figured out.
Yeah. And you can have these things that sound a little bit more stable, yet be inspiring and use your creativity. And I think that's where stability doesn't mean boring. But if stability does mean boring, then it can be changed, right? It doesn't have to stay.
What type of coaching do you do now? If you want to tell us a bit more about it and like, who are your clients?
So what I love to do is people get stuck and just taking them into like, I'm there for you. This is the space we create. And it's for you to take the time to peel the layers of that area where you're stuck. So because of my background, a lot of people come to me around well-being, but a lot of the time we end up talking about many other things than the typical self-care. Like there's a lot of emotional and relationship to self that we dig into. And the reward is just to see people finding their own answers. And that's really where I thrive, is that I'm not showing up as an expert giving you the answers. I'm showing up as a presence that supports you into moving towards the answers you need to hear and the action that you need to take. So that's what I do. My clients typically are women, surprise, surprise. And a lot of them are that age where your kids are now a little older. It's almost like you can breathe a little bit, but then you're like, now what?
That's my purpose.
Right. So that seems to be like in a time of life where people question, search, feel stuck. And so just providing that support to get through that transition a little faster and again, not feeling like there's no choice and that's it. Right. So really providing that space. There's choices. It's just a matter to clarify and which choice are you going to make and based on what? So based on I want to be well, and being well to me means this. Therefore, that's my choice.
The women that are coming to you, what do you find they're experiencing and achieving like once they've gone through your coaching programs?
It's funny because a lot of them will just realize that the answers are not out there like huge and big and stuff. Is that there can be really small things we can do every day to start feeling better. And when you do that and you start feeling better, it grows, right? So you start making better decisions around how you manage your day. Well, suddenly it's a week. Suddenly it's a month. Suddenly it's dealing with a bigger life decision. And you just have all the skills and abilities and the confidence to make that decision, knowing that it's going to help you be well.
It almost sounds like these people are finally putting themselves first and trusting themselves.
Yeah.
What a radical idea.
Yeah. And making those decisions based on me. What? That's crazy, right? And how it serves at the end, it serves their family.
If I turn the tables back to you, what choices and decisions and situations where you're not putting yourself first are you still experiencing?
Very little, I have to say.
Good.
Very little.
You've really worked on this enough that you're like, I can trust myself every time.
Yeah. And like, I know, for example, like spring's coming, like restrictions are over and like suddenly my kids have a lot of activities. And at first I was like, it's just going to be, it's that season. Like it has to be for them. But somehow I managed to find a purpose for myself behind all this. Yes, we're going to be busy, but now I'm seeing, but we're going to connect again with our community. We're going to meet people. I don't know. There's just, I think I just have an ability to make decision based on what makes me feel well, but also find a purpose when it doesn't at first feel like it's for me. I can kind of see beyond like bigger picture and see how it serves my purpose and know that, okay, I'll need to make sure that the meals are planned on time. And like, so what do I need to put in place so I'm still well, even though it may be more chaotic than I would want to.
Yeah, absolutely. When you look back at that person that was a kinesiologist, do you even recognize her anymore?
I recognize her, but I just want to hug her and tell her that everything's going to be fine, that you've got this. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
She still shows up.
I bet.
Totally. But I see her now for what she is. And it's like, thanks for showing up. You're showing me what's scary or what I need to be mindful of. But I have now skills and abilities to move through all this.
Final question for you to close it out.
Yeah.
After everything we've talked about today, what is that one final piece of advice that you really want the audience to go home with today?
The first thing that comes to mind is you always have a choice. always. Sometimes you just have to look hard, but you always have a choice.
And if people want to connect with you further, how do they find you?
Through my website. So it's Jen Boivin, GenBoivin.com. Fill out the contact form and I'll be more than happy to connect.
Jen, thank you so much for your time today. It has just opened my mind to so many other topics. We could have went down so many other roads. We've just the tip of the iceberg. But I agree. I think even in my own personal life, I have to remind myself that nope, you have a choice. Do you want this? Do you not want this? Check in with yourself a little bit more. Is this right for you? Is this in alignment? Is this someone you want to be hanging out with? Is this the dinner that you really want to make? Is this the type of activity you want to do today? I just wish we would ask ourselves more if it's really what we want, because like you do say, we do have a choice.
We do. And it's a couple seconds, right? Mm-hmm. In our time.
I agree. Well, thank you so much. It's been a blast and I'm so happy that you found me.
Thanks, Jenelle. That was very wonderful. It was nice chatting with you.
Did you know that I'm not only a podcast host, but in my full-time career, I am a Toronto-based real estate agent. In 2021, I closed 100 deals. Yes, you heard that correctly, 100. So if you or someone you know is a busy professional looking to get into the Toronto real estate market and looking to work with a realtor who values your time, make sure to reach out to me and let's get connected. And in the meantime, we'll see you here back next week.